I never liked office parties. They always felt forced, awkward small talk, people pretending they liked each other, and managers acting like they were part of the team when everyone knew they weren't. But my wife, Lorraine, loved them. She was in her element at these events, laughing, joking, effortlessly charming everyone in the room. She insisted I come with her this time, saying it would be fun and that I needed to socialize more. So there I was, standing near the bar, holding a watered-down drink and trying to smile while listening to some guy drone on about stocks. Lorraine was across the room, talking animatedly with a group of co-workers. I could hear her laughter cutting through the noise. The same laugh she used when she was trying to impress someone. It used to be just for me. Then it happened. She broke away from the group, walking towards me, her heels clicking against the marble floor. But she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her a little too close. He was tall, with an expensive suit and an air of arrogance. His presence felt deliberate, like he wanted me to notice him. And I did. Lorraine's face was unreadable. But the man, he smirked. Not a friendly, polite smile. A smirk, the kind that made my stomach twist, like he knew something I didn't. Like he had already won a game I didn't even know I was playing. He extended his hand before Lorraine could introduce us. "So you must be her husband," he said. His voice was smooth, practiced. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. And that's when I felt it, that sinking, gut-wrenching feeling. Something was wrong. I didn't know how or why, but I knew it. I shook his hand, forcing a polite nod. "Yeah, and you are?" He chuckled, glancing at Lorraine before answering. "Oh, she hasn't mentioned me." His tone was teasing, almost condescending. "I'm Mitchell. We work together." I looked at Lorraine, expecting her to say something, to laugh it off, to clarify, to do something. But she hesitated. That hesitation was everything. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. "Nice to meet you." My voice came out strained, unnatural. Mitchell leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough that Lorraine could hear, but not enough to make a scene. "She's quite the woman, isn't she?" He patted my shoulder, a gesture that felt anything but friendly. I was frozen, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what was happening, of what I was seeing, feeling, realizing. Lorraine's eyes flickered with something. Guilt? Panic? It was gone too quickly for me to catch. "Excuse us," she said suddenly, grabbing my arm and stealing me away before I could react. We stopped near a quieter corner of the room. She let go of me as quickly as she had grabbed me, brushing her hair behind her ear in that nervous way she always did when she was hiding something. "Don't overthink it," she said, her voice too casual. My chest tightened. "Overthink what, exactly?" She laughed, too forced, too bright. "Mitchell's just playful. That's how he is." I studied her face, searching for reassurance. I didn't find it. I wasn't overthinking. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. And I was going to find out exactly what it was. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, staring at Lorraine, letting the tension stretch between us. She held my gaze for a moment, then looked away. At her drink, at the floor, at anything but me. "Don't start," she said, sighing. "I'm not starting anything," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm just wondering why your coworker talks to me like we're in some kind of competition." She let out a short laugh, shaking her head. "You're being dramatic." I wasn't. My gut was screaming at me, and I had learned over the years that my instincts were rarely wrong. Lorraine was deflecting. She always did that when she didn't want to have a conversation. Turn it into a joke, make me feel like I was the one overreacting. But something about tonight was different. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "Is there something I should know, Lorraine?" Her head snapped up, and for a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? Fear? She was usually so composed, but in that moment, she looked rattled. "Don't do this here," she whispered harshly, glancing around the room. I looked around too. People were laughing, drinking, caught up in their own conversations. Nobody was paying attention to us. I leaned in slightly. "Do what? Ask my wife why some guy I've never met is acting like I'm the fool in the room?" She exhaled sharply, setting her glass down on the table beside us. "I told you, Mitchell's just like that. He flirts with everyone. It's harmless." I nodded slowly, processing her words. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something wasn't adding up. "Right?" I said finally. "Harmless." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, like she thought she'd won the argument. But I wasn't done. "So, if I asked him how long he's been harmlessly flirting with you, what do you think he'd say?" Lorraine's expression hardened. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I almost laughed. I was about to press further when someone called her name from across the room. She took the opportunity to escape, giving me a quick, forced smile before walking off. I watched her go, my stomach twisting. I wasn't stupid. I knew when something was off, and something was definitely off. The first clue. I didn't confront her again that night. Instead, I played the role of the supportive husband, smiling, nodding, making small talk. But inside, I was unraveling. The way she avoided me, the way Mitchell looked at me, the way she hesitated when I asked her a simple question. It all gnawed at me. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom, saying she was exhausted. I followed a few minutes later, only to find her already under the covers, facing away from me. "Good night," she mumbled. I lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to her slow, steady breathing. Was I imagining things? Was I overthinking? I turned my head slightly, watching the soft rise and fall of her shoulders. No, I wasn't, and I was going to prove it, digging for the truth. The next morning, Lorraine was back to her usual self. She kissed me on the cheek before heading out, acting like nothing had happened. I waited until she was gone before I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. I knew her passcode. She'd never bothered to hide it from me. Maybe that's why I hesitated before typing it in. Part of me wanted to believe I was wrong, that I was being paranoid. But the moment I opened her messages, my blood ran cold. Mitchell. Their texts weren't explicit, nothing I could outright accuse her of. But there was a familiarity, an intimacy in the way they talked. "Mitchell, last night was fun. You looked amazing." "Lorraine, haha, you always say that." "Mitchell, because it's true. When are we doing it again?" "Lorraine, I'll let you know. Can't talk right now." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. When are we doing it again? Doing what again? My fingers tightened around the phone as my chest constricted. I scrolled up, looking for more context, but the conversation had been wiped clean. Before that, she had deleted their earlier messages. I put the phone down, my hand shaking. This wasn't innocent. This wasn't harmless. I had just stepped into a nightmare I never saw coming. I sat there, staring at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. The words blurred in front of me, but I didn't need to reread them. They were burned into my mind. Last night was fun. When are we doing it again? I swallowed hard, my hands tightening into fists. I wasn't the kind of guy who jumped to conclusions, but the gut-wrenching feeling I had at that party was now confirmed. Something was going on. Lorraine had been lying to me. I took a deep breath and set her phone back exactly how I found it. I couldn't let her know I'd seen those messages, not yet. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie, delete more messages, cover her tracks. No, I needed proof, real proof. I spent the rest of the morning trying to act normal, going through the motions of my daily routine. But my mind was racing. I thought back to the little details I had ignored before. The times Lorraine came home late from work, the sudden increase in office outings, the nights when she said she was too tired for intimacy. Had it all been leading to this? I needed answers. The first step toward the truth. That night, when Lorraine came home, she acted as if nothing had changed. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and asked me about my day. I played along. Just the usual, I said, forcing a smile. How about you? She stretched her arms and let out a dramatic sigh. Exhausting meetings all day. I barely had time to eat lunch. Liar. I knew for a fact she had time to text Mitchell. I nodded. So, what's the plan for the weekend? She hesitated just for a second, but I caught it. Oh, probably just a quiet night in. Maybe a movie. I stared at her, feeling something break inside me. She had no idea I knew. No idea I was putting the pieces together. I decided right then and there I was going to find out everything. That night, while she slept peacefully beside me, I made my move. The investigation began. I started small, checking phone records, scanning her social media, looking for anything that stood out. But Lorraine wasn't sloppy. If there was something to find, she had hidden it well. I needed more. Then I had an idea. Her car. The next morning, after she left for work, I grabbed my spare key and went outside. If she had been sneaking around, there had to be some kind of evidence. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. But then I opened the glove compartment, and my stomach dropped. A folded-up receipt from 2 nights ago. A hotel. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs, confirming my worst fear. I gripped the receipt, my fingers trembling. The address wasn't far, maybe a 20-minute drive. I knew I shouldn't go. I should sit down, breathe, think before I did anything stupid. But I couldn't. I had to see it for myself. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the hotel parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. It was a standard business hotel. Nothing flashy, exactly the kind of place someone would go if they didn't want to be noticed. I walked in, my heart pounding, my mind racing with possibilities. I had no plan, just desperation. I approached the front desk, forcing myself to stay calm. Hey, my wife left something here a couple of nights ago. I think it was in the room. Is there any way to check? The receptionist barely glanced at me. What's the name on the reservation? I hesitated. If I used Lorraine's name and she hadn't booked the room herself, I'd look suspicious. I took a gamble. Mitchell. The receptionist tapped a few keys on the computer, then nodded. Yeah, we had a reservation under that name. I swallowed. Room number? She shook her head. Sorry, we can't give out that information. Of course. I forced a polite smile. No worries. Just thought I'd check. I turned and walked out, my stomach churning. It was real. Lorraine had been here with him. A new plan. I sat in my car for what felt like forever. gripping the receipt, my mind racing. I couldn't let this go. Not now. If I confronted Lorraine, she'd deny it, spin the story, make me feel crazy. No, I needed undeniable proof. I needed to catch them. And I had a feeling I knew exactly where they'd be. I took a deep breath and started my car. If Lorraine wanted to live a double life, I was about to shine a spotlight on every secret she thought she had hidden. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The receipt sat on the passenger seat, mocking me, confirming every fear I had tried to push aside. There was no more doubt, no more room for excuses. Lorraine was cheating. But I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. If I had learned anything from the past 24 hours, it was that she was careful, too careful. She had deleted their messages, covered her tracks, and pretended nothing was wrong. If I accused her now, she'd deny everything, twist the truth, maybe even cry and gaslight me into thinking I was imagining it. No, I needed to catch her in the act. So I made a plan, laying the groundwork. That evening, Lorraine came home as if nothing had changed. She walked into the house, kicked off her heels, and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. The scent of her perfume filled the air. Floral, sweet, a little too strong. It used to be a smell that comforted me. Now it made my stomach churn. "How was your day?" she asked, pulling her hair into a loose ponytail. I forced a smile. "Same old you?" She stretched, letting out an exaggerated sigh. "Exhausting meetings all day. I barely even got to sit down." "Liar." I nodded, pretending to believe her. "You still up for that movie night this weekend?" Her expression flickered for a moment before she smiled. "Oh, I actually just remembered. I might have to work late Friday." I kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. Work late? Right, just like she'd been working late the night she was at that hotel with Mitchell. This was it. She was planning another rendezvous, and I was going to catch her, setting the trap. The next morning, I made an excuse about needing to stay late at work. Lorraine barely reacted. If anything, she seemed relieved. Good. That meant she was planning something. I left the house as usual, but instead of going to work, I parked a few blocks away and waited. At 6:15 p.m., Lorraine left the house, dressed too well for a casual work night. A tight black dress, heels, her makeup flawless. My chest tightened as I watched her get into her car and drive off. I waited 5 minutes, then followed her. She drove across town, past restaurants and office buildings, until she pulled into the parking lot of the same hotel I had visited the day before. I felt sick. Even though I knew what she was doing, seeing it happen in real time was something else entirely. I parked a safe distance away, my pulse pounding in my ears. She stepped out of her car, smoothed her dress, and walked into the lobby. A minute later, Mitchell arrived. Watching it unfold, I had to force myself to stay calm. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly, I thought I might snap it in half. They greeted each other like they'd done this 100 times before. No hesitation, no fear of getting caught. Lorraine reached for his arm, laughing at something he said. Then, without a second thought, they walked inside together. I could barely breathe. I wanted to storm in there, grab him by the collar, and demand answers. I wanted to make her look me in the eye and explain herself. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, collecting the evidence. I snapped a picture of them entering the hotel together, then another, and another. This wasn't just about proving it to myself anymore. I needed undeniable proof. evidence that even Lorraine couldn't explain away. I took a deep breath and got out of my car, keeping my distance as I followed them inside. The hotel lobby was dimly lit, with sleek leather chairs and a long reception desk at the far end. I pretended to check my phone, watching them out of the corner of my eye as Mitchell spoke to the front desk clerk. A few seconds later, they were handed a key card. Room 317. I clenched my jaw as they walked toward the elevators, completely unaware of my presence. I waited until the doors closed before I approached the front desk myself. "Hey," I said casually. "I think my friend just checked in. But my phone died and I forgot the room number." "Mitchell, tall guy, dark suit. Do you mind reminding me?" The clerk barely looked up. "Room 317. I nodded, forcing a polite smile. "Thanks." I stepped away, my heart hammering. I had them now. I just needed to decide what to do next. For the next half hour, I sat in the hotel lounge, pretending to scroll through my phone while my mind raced. I had proof. Pictures, the room number, the receipt from the last time. There was no way she could talk her way out of this. But what now? Did I barge in and catch them in the act? Did I wait for her to come home and confront her? Did I tell her I knew and watch her scramble for an excuse? Every option felt terrible. No matter what I did, my marriage was over. And yet, a part of me still hesitated. I still wanted to believe there was some kind of misunderstanding, that she'd walk out of that room and tell me it wasn't what it looked like, that I'd wake up tomorrow and realize this had all been a mistake. But I wasn't an idiot. I had to face reality. Making the decision. At 9:45 p.m., the elevator doors dinged, and Mitchell stepped out alone. He adjusted his suit, ran a hand through his hair, and walked straight out of the hotel without looking back. A few minutes later, Lorraine appeared. Her dress was slightly wrinkled. Her hair was messier than before. She looked around, as if checking to see if anyone had noticed her, then hurried outside. I watched her walk to her car, unlock it, and sit behind the wheel for a moment before driving off. I followed her. When we got home, she acted completely normal. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and made small talk like she hadn't just spent the past few hours with another man. It was like she had been living a double life for so long that lying had become second nature. I stood in the kitchen, watching her, feeling nothing, no sadness, no heartbreak, just a quiet, simmering rage. She had no idea, but soon she would. I just had to decide how. I sat on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling while Lorraine moved around the house like everything was normal. She had no idea that I had followed her, that I had watched her walk into that hotel with Mitchell, that I had seen everything. She was so confident, so sure that I was oblivious, that she didn't even bother to hide the smirk playing at the corners of her lips as she brushed past me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her out right then and there, to pull out my phone, shove the pictures in her face, and watch her scramble for an excuse. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in silence, clenching my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I needed to be smarter than her. I needed to make sure that when I confronted her, she wouldn't have a single way out, the final piece of the puzzle. The next morning, Lorraine kissed me goodbye like she always did before heading to work. "See you tonight," she said with a smile, like nothing was wrong. I forced a, "No, yeah, see you." As soon as she was gone, I grabbed my phone. I had all the proof I needed, almost. I had the texts, the hotel receipt, the photos of her walking into the hotel. but I wanted more. Something so undeniable, so inescapable that even she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. So I made a call. "Hey, I need a favor," I said the moment my buddy Paul answered. Paul had been my friend since college. We weren't particularly close anymore, but he worked in private security, surveillance, tracking, background checks. He'd helped out a few people in ugly divorces before, so I knew he was the guy to call. "What's up?" he asked. "I need someone followed and I need video." There was a pause, then a low whistle. "Damn, man, who's the target?" I exhaled. "Lorraine." Another pause. Damn. I didn't need to explain. He already understood. "All right," he said. "Send me her schedule, places she goes, anything you know. I'll take care of the rest." I sent him everything. Her usual work hours, the night she had plans, the hotel name. It was time to end this. Watching it unfold. That Friday, Lorraine left the house looking too perfect. Her hair was styled just right, her dress was just tight enough to make sure someone noticed, and she practically glowed. Not for me, for him. I stayed behind, pretending to be buried in work. But the moment she was gone, I grabbed my phone. Paul had already sent me a message. "She's on the move. I'll update you soon." I paced the house, waiting, checking my phone every 5 seconds, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then, 2 hours later, my phone dinged. Paul had sent a video. I sat down, took a deep breath, and pressed play. Undeniable proof. The footage was shaky at first, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Lorraine was sitting in a dimly lit hotel lounge, sipping wine. She looked relaxed, happy, excited. Then Mitchell walked in. They greeted each other like lovers. The way he touched her arm, the way she leaned in just a little too close, the way she smiled up at him, like he was the most important person in the world. My stomach twisted. They spoke for a while, laughing, flirting. Then he placed his hand on her thigh, and she didn't pull away. She leaned into it. I almost stopped watching. I didn't want to see more, but I forced myself to. I needed to see it through. A few minutes later, Mitchell stood up, took Lorraine's hand, and led her toward the elevators. She followed without hesitation. The video cut off as the elevator doors closed. I set my phone down, staring at the screen in stunned silence. This was it. This was everything. The confrontation. When Lorraine walked through the door that night, she had no idea what was waiting for her. She smiled at me. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" I looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman who had kissed me this morning, knowing full well she was going to spend the night with another man. At the woman who had lied to my face over and over again. At the woman who had destroyed everything we built together. I exhaled slowly. It was good, actually. It was really good. She raised an eyebrow, setting her purse down. "Oh, what happened?" I picked up my phone and tapped the screen. Paul's video was right there. I could press play at any second. I could end this right now. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I smiled because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused, I wasn't anxious, I wasn't drowning in suspicion. I knew, and soon she would too. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at Lorraine as she casually kicked off her heels and stretched, acting as if she had just come home from another long day at work. She had no idea. She had no idea that I had seen everything, that I had proof of where she had been, who she had been with, what she had done. And she was completely at ease. That's what hurt the most. The way she could walk into our home, into our life, and act like nothing had changed. But everything had. I wasn't the same man I had been yesterday. I wasn't going to let this slide, not anymore. A dangerous game. Lorraine walked into the kitchen, humming to herself as she grabbed a glass of wine. Then she turned to me. "You okay?" she asked, sipping her drink. "You look kind of, I don't know, tense." I studied her face, pretending, always pretending. For a split second, I almost confronted her right then and there. I wanted to say, "Tense?" Yeah, maybe because I watched a video of you sneaking into a hotel with another man. But I didn't, because I wanted to see how far she would go. I leaned back on the couch and shrugged. Just a long day. She smiled. I know the feeling. I almost laughed. No, she didn't. She had spent her day in a hotel with her lover, then came home to her husband without a care in the world. She had no idea that her entire fake reality was about to come crashing down. I just needed to decide how. Planning the checkmate. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the video in my head. Mitchell's hand on her thigh, the way she followed him so easily, the way she smiled at him like she used to smile at me. There was no love left in that smile. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about the affair. This was about who she was. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was who Lorraine had become. I needed to destroy the fantasy she had built for herself. So I made my final plan. A plan that would leave her no room to lie, no room to twist the truth. A plan that would end this once and for all. The dinner set up. 2 days later, I told Lorraine I wanted to take her out to dinner. She smiled, looking pleasantly surprised. "Really? Just us?" "Yeah," I said. "It's been a while and I think we should talk." Her smile faltered for a second, but she recovered quickly. "That sounds nice." Nice. She thought this was going to be nice. She had no idea I booked a reservation at one of her favorite restaurants. Somewhere public, somewhere fancy, somewhere she'd feel comfortable and confident. Because I wanted to see her face when that confidence shattered. The dinner that changed everything. That evening, she dressed up more than usual. Tight red dress, heels, hair perfectly styled. She looked stunning. But all I could think was how she had probably dressed up like this for him too. As we sat down at the restaurant, she reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "So, what's the occasion?" she asked with a playful smile. I studied her, taking in every detail. Her bright eyes, her charming smile, the way she always knew how to control the conversation. Not this time. I pulled my hand away and reached into my jacket pocket. Then I placed my phone on the table, unlocked, with the video paused on the exact moment Mitchell led her to the elevator. The second she saw the screen, her smile disappeared. Her whole body went stiff. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Go ahead. Press play." She didn't move, didn't even blink. Her breathing was shallow, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. What is this?" she finally stammered. "You tell me," I said, tilting my head. "I mean, I wasn't there when you followed Mitchell up to his hotel room. But this video sure makes it clear, doesn't it?" She swallowed hard. This isn't what it looks like." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's the best you've got? That's what you're going with?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was trapped. The web of lies collapses. I sat back in my chair, watching the gears turn in her head. For the first time in forever, Lorraine had no way out. No excuse, no gaslighting, no pretending. She knew it. I knew it. And I wanted to hear her say it. Go on, Lorraine, I said, keeping my voice calm. Tell me the truth. Tell me how long you've been sneaking off with him. Tell me how many nights you've lied to my face before crawling into bed with me like nothing happened. Her lip quivered. I didn't mean... No, I cut her off. No more of that. How long? She looked down, her shoulders trembling. I waited. Then in a broken whisper, she finally said it. 6 months. I clenched my jaw, every muscle in my body going rigid. 6 months. Half a year. Half a damn year. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I had known deep down, but hearing her say it made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. I exhaled sharply, trying to control the storm inside me. Why? Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare sit there and pretend you don't know. She bit her lip, looking around as if searching for an escape. I felt like something was missing. I let out a bitter laugh. And instead of talking to me, you decided to fill that missing piece with him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't mean to. Oh, you meant to, Lorraine. Every single time you walked into that hotel, you meant to. She let out a choked sob, covering her face with her hands, and I just watched because I felt nothing. The last goodbye. I stood up, pushing my chair back. She looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. Wait, please. I held up a hand. Don't. I pulled a small envelope from my jacket and dropped it on the table. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, pulling out the papers inside, divorce papers. I nodded. Her lips parted, her face crumbling. No, please. We can talk about this. We can... No, Lorraine. My voice was ice cold. You had 6 months to talk. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She shook her head violently, but I didn't stay to hear the rest. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, feeling lighter than I had in months. Because for the first time in a long time, I was finally free. I walked out of the restaurant and into the night air, my heart pounding, my hands trembling slightly. As I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. The weight of everything, the lies, the betrayal, the exhaustion of pretending I didn't see the cracks. It was finally gone. Behind me, I could hear Lorraine scrambling out of her chair, calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I didn't care. I had given her 6 months of silence. 6 months of benefit of the doubt, 6 months of denial. Now she could drown in the truth she had tried so hard to keep hidden. I stepped onto the sidewalk, pulled out my phone, and dialed Paul's number. He answered on the second ring. It's done, I said, my voice steady. Paul exhaled. She confessed. 6 months. Jesus. Yeah. I glanced back through the restaurant window. Lorraine was sitting at the table, her face buried in her hands, the divorce papers still spread out in front of her. I don't think she saw it coming. I let out a dry chuckle. They never do. What's next? I've been asking myself that same question since the moment I saw the first text. What now? What happens after the confrontation, after the truth is out? Do I go home and pretend to sleep in the same bed she desecrated with another man in her mind? Do I keep sitting in the house where she would come back, smelling like him, smiling at me like nothing had happened? No, this wasn't just her ending. This was my new beginning. I took a slow breath. I'm moving out tonight. Paul was quiet for a moment. You need help? I shook my head. No, I need to do this myself. Respect, he said. But if you need anything, you call me. I will. I hung up, slid my phone back into my pocket, then I started walking, burning it all down. When I got home, the house felt different. Or maybe I did. The walls that had once held my memories now felt like a crime scene. The couch where she had curled up beside me, whispering how much she loved me, now looked like a prop in a play I hadn't realized I was a part of. I couldn't stay here, not another second. I grabbed a duffel bag and started packing essentials, clothes, my laptop, a few personal items, nothing more. I wasn't interested in fighting over furniture or dishes. Lorraine could keep the house, keep the car, keep all of it. I wanted freedom. As I zipped up the bag, I heard the front door swing open. Lorraine? She stepped inside, her makeup smeared, eyes wide with panic. You left me there. I didn't look at her. I did. You just walked out. And she caught sight of the bag and froze. What are you doing? I slung it over my shoulder, leaving her breath hitched. Wait, no, we have to talk. I finally turned to her. We did at dinner. That was the talk. Tears welled in her eyes. But I felt nothing, no pity, no regret, not anything. You don't have to do this, she whispered. I laughed, actually laughed. She flinched at the sound. You cheated on me, Lorraine, I said, shaking my head. For 6 months. And you thought what? That I'd just work through it? She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. No more excuses. No more crying. No more lies. I stepped past her, heading for the door. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She grabbed my arm. Where are you even going? I pulled free from her grip. Anywhere but here. And then I walked out. Freedom. I drove for hours, nowhere in particular, just letting the road take me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel trapped. No more wondering, no more overthinking, no more being the fool in my own marriage. At some point, I checked into a motel on the outskirts of town, threw my bag onto the bed, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked different, lighter, like a man who had finally cut the chains wrapped around his neck. I exhaled and grabbed my phone. Dozens of missed calls, even more texts. Lorraine begging me to come back, saying she was sorry, that we could fix this, that she loved me. I deleted all of them. Then, for the first time in weeks, I slept